So you remember the fact that I was on the news, I don't know, over the past week for basically calling the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, a fat pig, not for no reasons, but specifically because of the mentality, Sudanese mainstream media, the mentality of threatening to cut off power to America, specifically to 1.4, 1.5 million homes. And I was criticizing the media not for explaining that this is a war crime or an act of war, but because I called a fat pig with rabies. So I don't really understand the backlash, but here we are, and now we're facing the repercussions. There's actually a saying for this. What's it called? Fuck around and find out. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. I want to be very clear, to quote a liberal, all right? I don't support the trade war at all. I think that the initial tariffs that President Trump imposed on Canada, or threatened on Canada, was about the fentanyl and the border stuff, and do these things and you don't get tariffs. And we didn't really do it right away. So then he started to put a little bit of pressure on us. And then it evolved from there. Now it's steel and aluminum, and now it's expanded to, dairy products. And it's getting out of control. So the initial tariff threat was about fixing things, and we had every ability, resource at our disposal to actually fix those things. And now it's evolved to something that I don't support any of this at all. I don't support retaliatory responses. I don't support reciprocal responses. I don't support Trump doing this to Canada. I think it's getting a little mental and a little out of hand. But I specifically do not support cutting off power to civilians, because that is deemed an act of war. And Doug Ford recently took a bit of a U-turn approach on that and said, you know what, we're not going to cut off power yet. We're going to increase electricity that we're providing to America to 1.4, 1.5 million homes. We're going to put a 25% tax on that. That's a bit of a step in the right direction, since this is technically a trade war. That was the right decision for him to make, instead of cutting off power. But immediately after, he followed it up with, we're going to cut off the power if this continues. And now President Trump has responded to that 25% surcharge on electricity. So yeah, we're doing great here in Canada. In fact, things are about to get very, very much worse. Whether you believe this is true or not, here are the latest polls. The Conservatives are down out of majority territory, actually crawling their way into minority territory. In fact, it seems like the Liberals are crawling their way up, almost past the Conservatives, according to this poll. So Pierre's got 156 projected seats, and Carney, no more Trudeau. That's it's going to take a little getting used to. You got Carney at 143 projected seats. And so it's looking a little weird. Odds of an outcome, Conservative plurality, winning the most seats. I mean, it's still favorable for Pierre and the Conservatives, but I do believe that the longer these tariff threats go on and this trade war goes on, I do unfortunately believe that this is more beneficial to the Liberals, to Mark Carney, because they're the only party that are actually able to do anything, to use emergency powers, to have negotiating power, to go on American media and talk about how this is bad for America and Canadians, to address Canadians. Like, the only ones that have anything to gain right now is the Liberal Party, because Pierre's kind of stuck back behind everybody shouting retaliatory responses, which is what the Liberals are doing. So everything right now is in the court of the Liberals, and I don't like that. It makes us very vulnerable, because there's all this speculation that we're, around the corner from an election. So I don't like where this is going, and I feel like we're heading into dangerous territory of Liberals getting reelected, and that is scary, and that is going to be the collapse of Canada. But now let's take a look here at CNN announcing what President Trump said in response to the electricity surcharge. In fact, he doesn't call this Canada, he calls us China. I mean Canada. Here we go.
What is the White House saying, first of all, about this latest escalation in tariffs involving our closest neighbor and good friend, Canada?
Well, we really saw the president just moments ago his post on social media really just ramp up some of that uncertainty and threats to Canada. I note as well that this comes just days after Canada selected a new leader for the Liberal Party. We are going to see them have a new prime minister soon. Someone who has said that he wants to.
She just said it again, selected. Wasn't it an election, not a selection? Maybe semantics, but still kind of weird.
Continue what Justin Trudeau has been doing. But I want to get into what the president said. He said that in response to the Premier of Ontario placing a 25% tariff on electricity in certain states, that he is going to be responding, as you mentioned, with increasing tariffs on steel and aluminum from 25% to 50%. He also argued that those are going to go into effect starting tomorrow morning. He also said he would soon be declaring a national emergency on electricity within the threatened area. And he went on to say that if he does not like what Canada does, if he does not like how they respond, he will significantly increase tariffs on automakers and cars coming into the United States from Canada. And he added as well, he said this, which I found very notable, quote, "The only thing that makes sense is for Canada to become our cherished 51st state," just continuing on with that taunt. But I think the big picture here, Wolf, is that we have seen so much uncertainty. The market had its worst day yesterday that it has had all year. A lot of people wanting to get some reassurance from the president and the White House. This is not doing that. This is only creating far more uncertainty at a time when people are very concerned about the state of the economy.
And the markets are not good so far today in the first couple hours or so since it's open. The Dow Jones, as you can see, bottom right-hand corner of the screen, down 570 points already. Elena, stand by. I want to bring in Vanessa. Vanessa, how else is Wall Street responding this morning? Yesterday was very, very bad.
Oh, my God. Markets have tanked.
Yeah, markets opened mixed this morning, kind of waiting to see what the president was going to say. We got that answer at 10 a.m. when the president posted on Truth Social that he would be doubling tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. And you see now markets reacting to that news, falling even further. There's a big question here about whether or not we're pointing towards a recession. President Trump said that he could not rule one out, and Goldman Sachs has just increased their recession forecast to 20% from 15%. But just to reassure folks at home, we are not in recession territory just yet. And Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, said that the economy is actually in a good place right now. But there are flashing warning signs right now. We are hearing from major retailers about what the outlook is looking like for consumers for this year. Delta slashing its forecast by about half, and also Kohl's saying that this is going to be a turbulent 2025 for consumers, and you see those stocks up.
Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of the concept that I believe Trump is taking right now. He pretty much wants to take the entire American economy, all the auto manufacturers, all the big boys there, the Mag 7s, say, get your stuff outside of, or remove your locations, your headquarters, your manufacturing, your production, remove them from outside of the country and bring them into the country. And that's going to have, as you've seen, if you monitor the stock market, I mean, trillions of dollars have been wiped out over the past week alone. Like, this is insane. We're gearing up for what could be almost this like black swan event, right? During COVID, that tanked the market, like 50, 60, 70%, right? It was insane. It was absolutely insane what happened. And the president of the United States is doing that to the economy. But if he continues course, and 3, 4, 5 years from now, when every, auto manufacturer, every business is basically in America, it's going to be a powerhouse. And so it's a little bit of short-term pain for long-term gain. And I could kind of understand that seems to be a little bit what of Pierre Poilievre's messaging is. We need to bring things here in Canada. We need to refine our own oil, intra-provincial trade, not just with our goods, but also our services, right? Knock down the borders of province to province. And then you can have, more transient workflow with healthcare professionals and all that stuff. Like, it's good, but it does have short-term pain. And it's not going to be 9 years of pain like the Liberals have done, but it definitely will be a little bit of pain. And so it's interesting to see America get the head start on this. And if Pierre Poilievre is elected as Prime Minister of Canada in the upcoming election, I believe there will also be similar effects here in Canada. Stock market tanking a little bit, right? I know it's crazy, but that's just how it works. You need to shut your production outside of Canada, bring everything here, and then over the course of rebuilding our foundation, it'll be pretty good. So we're gonna have to wait and see how that plays out. But the White House press secretary did take questions from reporters about this tariff and the new increase because of what Doug Ford did and said.
What is the status of President Trump having a conversation with Mark Carney? We have seen the president use the term governor to refer to Justin Trudeau. Will that moniker also go to Mr. Carney going forward? And is the decision to increase the tariffs, is that based on a specific economic metric that he looked at? Is it impulse? How would you describe his reaction to candidates?
The president has not yet spoken to Mr. Carney, not since I checked, which was just moments ago. But certainly his phone is always open to leaders who wish to speak with him. As for the tariffs, the president made his position on this quite clear with the statement that he put out. And it was a retaliatory statement due to the escalation of rhetoric that we've seen out of Ontario, Canada. The president saw the Premier, Doug Ford, make an egregious and insulting comment threatening to shut down electricity for the American people, for hardworking American families. He made that threat. The president saw that and has an obligation and a responsibility to respond accordingly and represent the interests of the American people. So he has made the decision to add a 25% tariff. So now steel and aluminum tariffs will come into effect tomorrow at the rate of 50%. And our steel and aluminum industries have actually applauded these tariffs because, again, they know it's going to grow their industry here. It's going to allow them to export more steel that is made right here in the United States with American workers.
Egregious and insulting are your words here, but that's what many Canadian leaders have said about the actions President Trump has taken toward Canada. And what do you think the timeline is for speaking to Mr. Carney? Because normally a sitting president speaks to a close ally very quickly when there's new leadership.
Well, the president is, again, responding to the fact that Canada has been ripping off the United States of America and hardworking Americans for decades. If you look at the rates of tariffs across the board that Canadians have been imposing on the American people and our workers here, it is egregious. In fact, I have a handy-dandy chart here that shows not just Canada, but the rate of tariffs across the board. If you look at Canada, since you brought it up, American cheese and butter, nearly 300% tariff. You look at India, 150% tariff on American alcohol. You think that's helping Kentucky bourbon be exported into India? I don't think so. 100% tariff on agricultural products from India. Look at Japan, tariffing rice, 700%. President Trump believes in reciprocity, and it is about dang time that we have a president who actually looks out for the interests of American businesses and workers. And all he's asking for at the end of the day are fair and balanced trade practices, and unfortunately, Canada has not been treating us very fairly at all over the past.
I mean, right from the get-go, President Trump said America will be respected. America will be borderline feared. I don't know if he said that, but I'm reading between the lines is kind of what I got. And what Canada and Canadian politicians have been doing and saying does not help the situation. It's very unfortunate. Like, there's only one Canadian politician that was openly against the tariff and the trade war. He's trying to bridge the gap between everything. And that was Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith. And Danielle Smith is actually sharing a stage with Ben Shapiro in Florida to discuss this, which is pretty interesting because Ben Shapiro has been very open about the fact that this is not good that America has been doing this to Canada. Why would President Trump do this to the biggest and the longest existing trade partner with America? So let's take a look at this because this is adding social pressure in America to the administration.
As many Canadians cancel trips south of the border, Premier Danielle Smith is being criticized for planning a taxpayer-funded trip to Florida to share the stage with a controversial political commentator. Danielle Smith is slated to meet conservative podcast host Ben Shapiro at his fundraiser later this month. Shapiro has referred to Canada as the 51st state and has been hostile openly toward marginalized communities. Alberta's NDP leader, Naheed Nenshi, calls Shapiro an extremist. Smith's party is defending the travel, calling it a chance to advocate for Alberta and Canada. One political watcher says since it's a taxpayer-funded trip, Smith should be speaking with government officials.
It seems to be outside of the purview of what the Premier would be doing. And it's even outside of the more recent trips around the tariffs, which, irrespective, one can argue how effective that has been, but at least it falls sort of within what premiers have been doing. This one seems to be kind of a bridge too far in terms of that.
The Premier's office says Smith is not receiving a speaking fee for her appearance. The event takes place March 27th. This is the only item on her Florida agenda, though her office says the itinerary has not been finalized.
Oh, there we go. There we go. So the turns have tabled a little bit in America. That'll be pretty interesting to see how that does play out. And then I did come across this video here about Mark Carney and how he won really big in Northern Ontario, which is very disappointing, like extremely disappointing that he somehow won huge in Northern Ontario. Let's take a look at this video here.
Northern Liberal Party of Canada members voted overwhelmingly in favor of Mark Carney to take over the leadership. In Sudbury, he received 495 votes to Freeland's 38, while in Sudbury East, Manitoulin and Nickelbelt, Carney saw 263 votes.
I was very pleased to see Mark Carney win yesterday and win in such a resounding way. I think that allows him to come in a position of strength at a time when our country really needs it.
It was up to the Liberals to decide who their next leader is going to be. And given where we are right now with the chaos that Trump has thrown the wrench at Canada on, I think that, many are very relieved that finally, things are going to start moving forward.
Political science professor David Tabachnik says even he was surprised how Carney won in a landslide.
What it means for Northerners is a little hard to say. It could mean, of course, that the Liberals will win the next election. Again, I'll leave it up to your viewers to decide whether that's a good or bad thing. But indeed, Carney has kind of breathed life back into the Liberal Party, and we'll likely have an election in the next few weeks or months.
Tabachnik adds that he feels it will be a tight race.
They were some 25 points behind the Conservatives, and now, more or less, they're even. Some polls have the Liberals ahead, some have the Conservatives ahead, so quite competitive. The Conservatives did a very effective job attacking Justin Trudeau. That explains their lead in part, and attacking the carbon tax. Both of those things are now gone. Justin Trudeau, of course, and Carney, who has announced that the carbon tax will be one of the first things he's going to get rid of when he takes office.
Carney will become the 24th Prime Minister of Canada within days. Lindsay Alick, CTV News, Sudbury.
Yeah, I think that most of us can agree that the messaging that Pierre's had recently, it needs to change a little bit, because whether you want to believe the polls are true or not, people are not as supportive of Pierre's recent messaging because it's just so similar to that of the Liberals. People want an opposition party, which is why Pierre is the official leader of the opposition. And to validate this claim, here's what Pierre Poilievre posted earlier this morning on X. Common sense conservatives strongly condemn President Trump's latest unjust tariffs targeting Canadian steel and aluminum workers and manufacturers. And he goes on and says how we should be hitting back, and if the president applies further tariffs, as he has threatened, we will hit back on those as well. We will not falter in defense. Like, it's just very much retaliatory. And you can see, so this post got 4.3 thousand likes. And when you scroll down, I mean, he's pretty much been ratioed. Viva Fry, 1.8 thousand. Cat Turd, 7.7 thousand. Almost doubled the amount of likes on the post than what Pierre got. We should just stop all trade with you. Maybe then you'll stop bashing Trump 24/7. Like, I think Canadians are just a little bit fed up with the bashing of Americans, of Trump, and want a leader or a political party, at least, to bridge that gap between Canada and America. And yes, it's unfortunate that we are going through all of these tariffs imposed by Trump. It started off as one thing, the border issue, and then it has evolved. I fully agree that it's gotten a little bit out of control, but is the answer really a retaliatory response? Like, there's got to be something else that Canada Canadian politicians can do other than threatening to cut off the power and having retaliatory responses, because then Trump is just going to have reciprocal on top of that. And we're just going to do 10%, 10%, 20%, 20%, 30%, 30%. Like, this is just mental. At what point does this become just plain stupid? And so I don't have the answer of what Pierre Poilievre should be doing. That's not my job. That's his job. He's the leader of the official opposition party. And I think that the Conservatives need to get back into the sandbox, into the war room, and figure out a better plan, because this messaging right now that he's been doing, it's not working. Whether you believe the numbers or not, this is what the polls are showing, that it's very much not working. And so Pierre Poilievre is unfortunately at risk of losing, right, what he's built. And this is all because of the almost uniparty messaging that's been coming from him. And I still support Pierre. I still want the Conservatives to win, absolutely. But something needs to change, and it needs to change very, very quickly. That is the end of the video, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to show some support to this channel by hitting the like button and subscribing to this channel. And I'll see you guys later on. Bye for now.
Mr. Sunshine Baby, Sunshine Baby, Sunshine, 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 Shine, 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 Baby.
Na 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 na, na 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 na. Hey, goodbye.